I recently discovered that the secret to making really good fried rice is that you don't really want to fry anything at all except for the egg. I used to fry the meat too, but it always become really tough and hard to chew. So I'm going to share with you my secret for cooking the meat to perfection ahead of time. And that secret is this little black hot plate called the Hot Logic Mini. You can buy it at hotlogicmini.com. 1.5 pounds of meat and the 3-quart Salad Master on top of the Hot Logic Mini and about 8 hours of cooking time produces a supreme result. The meat's cooked to perfection at 144 degrees. If your meat's not frozen to start with, it might cook in as little as 3 hours, but in any case, you won't need to check it before 3 hours. I like to drain the broth and save it for making a beef stroganoff. Now, it didn't look very appealing at first, but as you can see, the meat is cooked to perfection. So you want to cook 1.5 cups of dry rice. I've read in a few recipes that you should always wash the rice. I'm not sure why, but it's just something I always do. Just wash off that white, whatever it is, that white residue. Now to cook the perfect rice, you use about 1 cup of water for every 1 dry cup of rice. Plus maybe 1/8 of a cup more, but you might be pushing your luck. If you add too much water, it'll be soggy. I like to bring it to a boil on level 7 and then reduce it to simmer for 15 minutes. Now once your rice is cooked, you need to oil it up, and I'd say I'm adding about 2 tablespoons of peanut oil. And you want to add 1 level teaspoon of salt for every dry cup of rice. So 1.5 teaspoons of salt here. Now, the reason I'm adding the peanut oil right now and the salt is that it's easy to stir inside of the 3-quart pan. If I were to add it later to the skillet, I might be spilling the rice over the sides. I like to use 20 to 26 snow peas. And I wouldn't use any more than 2 eggs. If you use 3 eggs, you're pushing your luck. They might stick to the pan. You'll see what I mean later. But you want to beat those eggs ahead of time. I think this is about a tablespoon or less of grapeseed oil. Grapeseed oil is great because it's got a high smoke point, something like 485 degrees before it starts to smoke. So I heat up the pan on level 5, and I perform a water test. If the water does that, it's not ready. When it does that, it's ready. Now the egg is floating on top of the oil, so it's not going to stick to the pan. If I had added 3 eggs, it might not work so well. If you don't get the pan hot enough, it's not going to work that well. So that's what the sizzle test is for. As you can see, the egg's not sticking to it really. And I don't want to burn the egg, so I put it down to level 3 after a minute or so to finish cooking it. Okay, so it stuck a little bit, but not that much. Maybe I should have added more oil. So when it's done, set it aside, because if you leave it in the pan, it's just going to burn and turn brown and get nasty. So now with my pre-oiled rice, pre-oiled and pre-salted rice, I just put it in the pan and reheat it. And what's nice is you can cook the meat 2 or 3 days before you make your fried rice, and same thing with the rice. You can cook that 2 or 3 days ahead of time too. And since you put the peanut oil on it, it's not going to stick. So there, I turn it up to level 6 to reheat it. Now this wouldn't be so easy to stir, like I said, if I hadn't pre-oiled it. As you can see, there's nothing sticking to the pan. So I'm really not frying anything. The fried rice isn't going to get its flavor from sticking butter in the pan and frying it. If you stuck butter in that pan, it would just turn to smoke and stick to your pan. And so right now it's not hot enough. I really recommend you buy a thermometer. But when it starts to steam all the time when you're stirring it, that's when it's ready. It's close to boiling temperature. There, it's 210. It's ready. So first thing I do is I add the ingredients in a very specific order. I like to add the egg first. It's not going to be in there so long that it's going to burn. Right now I've still got the heat turned up, but now I'm turning it off. It's important to turn it off right now. You've got a lot of heat stored in that skillet, and you don't need any more heat to cook this dish. Now what you have to do is start cooling off the fried rice as you add the ingredients. It's so hot right now, that's kind of sterilizing the snow peas. It's kind of like you're steaming the snow peas. But you want to be careful not to overcook them, because if they become soggy, the flavor changes and it's a bit nasty. You want the snow peas to remain crispy. So I'm not speeding up the footage. This is real-time cooking. And you can see how long they're in there before I add the next ingredient. So I cooked 1.5 pounds of meat, but I'm only going to use half of that for this recipe. So you want 3/4 of a pound of meat. So right now, with the addition of each ingredient, I'm sucking heat out of the skillet. Now I've cooked the meat to perfection at 144 degrees ahead of time, so I don't have to worry about cooking it to kill any germs. It's already cooked, but I don't want to get it too hot, because if it gets too hot, it's going to lose its tenderness. So that's why I add the eggs and snow peas first. There's toasted sesame oil. That first thing I added was untoasted sesame oil. I don't know if you need to add both toasted and untoasted, but I have both bottles, so I probably added 1.5 teaspoons of each oil. Next ingredient is rice wine. Did you hear that sizzle? That's what you want to hear. With that sizzle, you've kind of you've taken away the pan's ability to sizzle anything else, and that's important because you want to add the soy sauce last, because if you add it when it's too hot, it's going to lose all its flavor. Same thing with the oils. If you added the sesame oil first, it would be too hot and lose its flavor. So everything needs to be added in the order I do it in the video. And even though I turned off the heat way ahead of time, shortly after adding the eggs, you can see that it's still 158 degrees. And the meat's still kind of red, meaning I didn't overcook it, so it's going to be perfectly heated up and tender and juicy when you're eating your fried rice. Enjoy!